computer seems to be an isolated little device. But in fact, by adding equipment, you can make your computer talk to the world. There are some technical problems to be solved here. Mostly you'll want your computer to communicate over telephone lines. And telephone lines were designed for speech. Computers that want to talk to other computers can't use speech. Even if they could talk, the computer at the other end would have trouble listening to speech. Instead, we have to convert the bits that are inside the computer into frequencies that can be passed over the telephone line, and then we have to change the frequencies from the telephone line back into the bits that the computer at the other end will accept. Changing the bits in a computer to frequencies is called modulation, and a device is a modulator. Now when we get to the other end, the frequencies have to be changed back to bits, and that's called demodulation. We do it with a demodulator. And then communication is a two-way street, so at either end we have a modulator sending the signal, and for the other path coming back to you, there's a demodulator doing the whole thing. This results in a machine which does both. It's both a modulator and a demodulator, and so we call it by the rather peculiar combination name of modem. We need one of those. Here, for example, is a commercial modem. This one plugs into the communications interface on the back of the computer. We can plug it in back here at the rear of our Commodore 64. But that's not quite enough. The telephone line, by the way, plugs in to the little hole over here, okay? But that isn't enough to do the job. This is just a piece of hardware, and it doesn't know how to get the bits on the line. It'll ship them there when we deliver it, but in order to make the modem work, we have to have a program to go with it. And if you buy a modem for communications purposes, you should make sure that you also get a compatible program to help you talk to computers at the other end. Let's talk a little bit about what goes over the telephone. We know that it's frequencies, so that the telephone can be used in its normal manner. But there's something else going on. A special code is used for communication, not quite the same as the code that's inside the machine. It's called ASCII, A-S-C-I-I, which stands for the American Standard Code for Information Interchange. And it's a good thing because even different makes of computers can talk to each other that way. Now let's assume that you've connected up a modem and you're ready to talk to the world. Who are you going to talk to? Well, there are several different places. Let's try to itemize it. First of all, in many towns and communities, there are computer bulletin boards. There are computers that will receive your call, accept the messages from you, store them away, and deliver these messages to other people who called in. It's a little bit like a bulletin board in your home. You can hang up notices saying, for sale, one computer going cheap, or whatever your particular communication happens to be, and other people will read that and perhaps answer you. You'll have to call in again to get the answer. What kind of a price do you pay to use a bulletin board? They're usually free. They're usually done by individuals in your community or neighborhood. In the evening, when they're not using the computer for anything else, they hook it onto their telephone line and use it that way. What else can you use a computer for in the communications world? Well, you can call into databases, large computers that handle a great deal of information. There are many commercial databases around, such as, for example, the Source, CompuServe, and several others. They not only store information, but they are, in and of themselves, very large computers, and they can also do large-scale computing, in case you find something that Commodore 64 is a little too small for or a little too slow for. So you can tap the resources of bigger computers, and you can tap their information too, perhaps stock reports, perhaps other things. Here we have a computer that we've used for several things. For example, we contacted CompuServe, and on there we have the CBM Club. That's on Commodore business machines, and it tells you news and information from Commodore on the new products and things that have been happening. You might have new information on the 64 from there. What else can we do? Well, over on the printer, we have the Shop at Home feature. We can actually look around and look at products that we can obtain. It's a little bit like a mail order catalog. Another thing, we have on the screen right now, we've interrogated the computer and said, what flights do you have going from Denver, Colorado to London, England? Turns out that the computer has searched its memory and looked for all of the connections, and what we have here are, for example, one direct flight that takes place at about 8:15 p.m., and we have two flights involving connection. One of them, it looks like it goes through Boston, and the other one goes through Denver. I'm sorry, through Salt Lake City. We started at Denver, didn't we? That's the way we can sort out information. It can be right up to the minute. It can be very, very informative. If you want to evaluate your stocks, if you want to read perhaps the latest sports information, if you want to be trained on something, learn something, you can do that. Because when you put a communications port on your computer is no longer alone. When you go to use your computer, you can share information with the entire world. And that's a very good thing to be able to do.